let's get back to again now working on, I say, a broadcast comp. And what I'm going to do, of course, is just kind of focus this on from start to finish today, but also be able to kick out the logo, animated logo variations. Now to do that, I need some content, right? So let's go over here to my desktop where I've already got my folders. Let's see, broadcast composition, right? And I can have assets, that can be my logo graph, all that stuff. I need audio. And let's just come up, like I said, I'm going to do this from start to finish. So let's just come up with a concept, right? So I'm going to come here and let's go ahead and pick something like a Jeep logo, right? So I'll go to images. Now be aware of this too. Sometimes the best thing to do is when you're looking for Google images. Oh, I'm not in Google. I'm big. It's okay. Okay, I'm going to find just a logo here and save that as, yeah, drop it right in my logo. Let's say Jeep logo. But remember I said we need to have a couple variations of this. So maybe I have that logo and then I'll come up with a different Jeep logo. Let's see, we got Jeep Wrangler. Maybe I'll just keep it simple. Yeah, I'll just keep it simple. I'll just leave it as one. We'll just do it animated two different ways. Okay, and then I'll come over here. Let's just type in Jeep and get some content. Do I want to do motion graphics? Do I want to do videos? I mean, I can even in Photoshop here, animate it. Let's go here, actually, let's go back to images. And find, a photo perhaps that I can cut out of the background. Just do it quickly. Well, that one might work there. I was hoping to find one on a clean white background. This Jeep, always a Jeep PNG. See? Those PNGs are up against white backgrounds, so it's easier to find. Or transparent backgrounds. I mean, these are all 3/4. Yep. See, that one's all because it's a PNG. It comes with a transparent background. Let's go ahead and just add that PNG to my assets. Right? Now, this is actually a good idea now that I'm in Photoshop here, because remember I showed you guys last week that, or even going back into the Kinetic Type 2, 3, and so on, that even in, like, say, Photoshop, to create new and go to the film and video section and choose the 1920 1080 is better than just opening an image, because this gives me the action title safe grid lines here as well. I mean, yeah, it also gives me my white background, which I really don't need, but, and then I can place embedded that which I need to put in here. Jeep. I'm going to have it be that size. Let's place it. Just be aware that when you place things like that, white, it's a PNG. You see, it does give me shadows, which are pretty cool. So I'm actually going to use those shadows. Now, what I'm going to also do here, though, is I'm going to cut up the tires. I want to remove the tires, cut and paste them, so that I can animate them. To do that, I'm going to use a little bit of feather to it. I'm not going to. I mean, if it's against a darker, slightly darker background, that should be fine. Not to mention what a good practice here would be, come back and heal that which you have now, destroyed by coming in and just quickly painting over or healing with the healing brush tool that which you just took away. Right? All my settings need to be reset. This is so you don't get that tools are off from the last time we used this. Come in here. Just fill that back in. But yeah, just that way, now that it's a second layer, or it's a separate layer, I should say, you can see where I can now, animate that, rotate that, do whatever I need to do with that. And the cool part about it here is I could even kind of come in here and do the same thing to this. Borrow that one to grab this one. Okay, just filling it in where I took it away. Okay. And now, if there was something else moving, like if I wanted to put a person in there, I could put them in there and just have their head kind of bobbing back and forth. So especially if it's driving, it actually looks like there's a driver in there. Or I can even videotape myself sitting in a chair against a green screen and put that in there and put myself in the ad. Whatever it happens to be. So now though, what I've got here is I've actually got this to a point where I can work with it. Go ahead and save it in my assets. I'll call this Jeep comp. I want to call it Jeep comp. I'll just call it Jeep. And save it as a PSD with all those layers so that each layer can be independently done. Now in After Effects here, to bring in that, let's see if it'll bring in my video now. That's still something is amiss. It's not right about that file I keep trying to bring in. Save video as. Just resave. But to bring in that PSD I just brought in, I can import that as a PSD, okay, but not as footage. Footage means it will come in only as one single layer. I'm going to bring it in. Oh, wait, where is it? Here, PSD. But not as footage, but rather as composition. And this is really where retained layer size really makes a difference, because what retained layer size means is that each layer, the anchor point will be centrally located on that layer, which is really important when it comes time to animate those wheels. As the wheels and tires, I want to rotate them according to the central anchor point, not from the composition anchor. And that's what this difference here is. Go ahead and just animate this one. I got all these silly grids. Just go to view. Clear guides. There we go. Okay. So yeah, like the two tires, you see the anchor point is dead center on that tire. So what I'm going to do is select them both. Key that rotation. Let's see what direction we're going in here. And let's type in some large number there, like 8 or something like that. See now, just that easily, I've got it. And so it can now freely move. But just for the hell of it, okay, let's go ahead and I'm going to add some really freaky things here in the effects presets. because I want to get this illusion of just random movement to it all, like it's actually like vibrating and bouncing up and down a little bit. So I'm going to type in wiggle in my effects presets, and that gives me wiggle position, wiggle rotation. I'm going to use for each of these a slightly different independent wiggle. Let's go with wiggle position, okay? Now, wiggle position has speed amount, right, in the position, and I could even do uniform scales. Let's see here, let's say wiggle amount, let's make this, the body should not move as much as the tires, right? Yeah, so let's put this down to a low number. Now, obviously, there is a slight anchor point issue on that. I don't know why. So we can get this 3, a lower number here, 5. Yeah, it looks like it's pretty much dead center. Kind of crawling along, maybe I need a little bit more speed. 6, all right. Now the cool part is I can even take just this wiggle position here and the transform, so I'm highlighting them both, copying it, and I can paste it to the next tire, but they will not be the same because they're on a random scripted, okay, so they're moving independent of each other. And I'm going to paste it to the body. Okay. Now the problem, of course, with the tires, the problem, of course, with the truck or the Jeep here is that the anchor point is dead center through, right? And I need the Jeep to be moving only from this. So I'm going to open up the Jeep here, the body, transform. This is anchor point, right? And move it back down. There, that's a little more realistic. Now I could have even done that here with the tires, so that the tires, but I would, if I move the anchor point, the rotation won't work. And that would be a case there of using a layer, new, and a null, where the null would have the wiggle on it, not, but the rotation would be on the tire itself. In fact, let me show that to you. So let's go back here. Right? So I'm going to go ahead and remove the wiggle from this tire, so it only has rotation on it. See? And now I'm going to make a null object, parent that tire to the null. But actually, before I do that, let's put the null where it needs to be. And it's got this anchor point up in the upper corner here, so do it right there. Now, I'm going to parent that tire to the null, then paste the wiggle to the null. See, so it actually now, instead of the tire moving up and down, it's, that tire is rotating always on the ground, but because the anchor point is there, and so you get a little bit more natural movement to it. Although it is independent suspension, four-wheel independent suspension, so they should all be moving independently. Oh well, we'll leave it at that. Let's see here. Maybe I'll turn on some blur. All right, I'm kind of happy with that, so that looks good. Let's go to our master comp, and let's go ahead and bring sheet now into this somewhere. And the reason why I did it animating in its own layer is because now I can do what I want to here. Put this probably at the end here of our logo. Get that wrong. Smaller. Position. I'm just going to have that drive right past the screen there to reveal. Maybe I'll have it reveal logo or something like that. All right, so we're talking, logos. We're talking motion graphics. We're using some video here. Let's figure out what the video problem was. I guess it's a file format issue. Footage import. Okay, so now we got it. Put that in the content here. There we go. Full screen. And I'm just going to use some of this content here and cut it up in pieces and stuff. Not use all of it per se. All right. So now we need to think about, well, we've got things like the logos to deal with. Let's get some audio in here. Liquid gold, infinite space. Is that it? I guess that's it. It's almost timed out perfectly at 8 seconds. Fade. End of that audio. Okay. And let's have some fun with this. All right, so the logos. Animating the logos. I'm going to do 2 Jeep logos, but animate them different ways and different functions and different purposes here. Now again, I can use Photoshop. Right, I can come here and with my 1920 1080 all ready to go here, I can come in and place again that logo. Right? Entire. And here, even again, I can rasterize my smart layer so I can work with it. Very quickly come over here to all the white, move it. Or if I want to move this white, just select a mask so I can expand it a little bit. And again, either I'm using Photoshop to build a composition of all these layers, or as I showed you before, if I use Adobe Illustrator, I can vectorize this and turn it into a 3-dimensional kind of thing. In fact, let's do this. Let's just go XV. Now I'm breaking up it into all of its layers. So Okay, so now I can even take these pieces off. I'm gonna leave those on there. So you see, it's just a series of layers, right? And now I can come and just name it. Save as Jeep logo. Okay. Oh, and I forgot one thing too that's kind of cool. Let me get back to the Jeep PSD here. All right, because I did this in Photoshop now. Jeep here, watch how cool this is. Even though this is what it is here, watch what I can do here. I can do image adjust, hue saturation, and say, yeah, you know what? I know you had, you know, what color was my Jeep in the video? Red. Okay. Watch this. Okay. Even so in Photoshop, I can convert it to a red, just resave it, and it updates. Of course, I may have to change the color of my taillight now to be red, not green. But it's really cool that you can do those quick changes. Same thing can be said here with this logo. Like I said, okay, I don't want the green, I want red, image adjust, hue saturation. Okay. As long as I save it here, it'll update and adjust in After Effects. It's kind of neat that that plays with that. All right, let's go ahead and import that logo now. Logo, take layer size composition, import. Now, I already have the word opening logo here, but I did just do this. So if I want to just turn this into a logo, or don't need this opening logo, I could double click and get the logo. Go ahead now and turn off. Clear guides. And like I said, now these are all independent, so I can animate them on the fly. Let's go ahead and make sure that our composition settings for this is quite short. It did say about 8 seconds. I'll go 7. Okay. And now it's just a question of how do we want to animate this? Well, I can animate this like kinetic type and just have it quickly fly in, you know, just and build itself here. I can play around with, because it's not vector, it's from Photoshop, I can play around with the 3D options here. So maybe I'll go to like 10-second here. Open them all up at once, open up the transform, and think about, okay, what am I going to rotate these? Maybe I'll rotate these on the X. Go back to the beginning of time here. And let's see, this Jeep one, let's see, here we go. Oops. One thing you can see there is the anchor point needs to be changed if I want these to kind of fly in from the top. Z, there. Take it all the way down the anchor point. So move the anchor point down. Here, so let's say, what did I say there? Negative 2 and 2. Right? Do that to all of them. I find it easier, a lot easier sometimes, because I'm old school like this, to actually just type in numbers than to, you know, guess. Okay. For some reason, that one looks like it's off. So 386, 390. That back where it needs to be. number, say 100. Then change that to the other ones. Oops. So now I've got the anchor point moved up to the top for all 4 of these characters. Now I can give it a rotation. I'm going to have it rotate in, kind of like it's slamming down. We'll say, again, negative 100. Looks like it'll do it. On the X rotation. Oh, that one needs to go a little bit more than that. 112. Okay, and because I've done that, now it's just a question of adjusting and offsetting the timing so that they're not all coming in at once. So maybe I had 1 second here is where I want the J to come in. The next E can come in 10 frames after that. 20. So, oh, this is interesting. See, let's go back to Photoshop here because I just realized that I have the opening here of that red windscreen, which I don't want. Let's go fill it in. Right? I don't need that open anymore. Just going to hit a Control S to save it. Back over to After Effects and see now it's filled in. Okay. So now I need to get this to right about here. I want my Jeep to be there. So let's go ahead and transform. Okay, and I'm going to see, I'm going to unkey that. I want that there. But I know position-wise and rotation-wise on Y, I want this Jeep to be at this position. But then I want it to all the way over here, maybe not even there, maybe at 1. I'm going to send it back into Y. Back into Y. Because I want it to look like it's driving and hitting the word Jeep. Send that all the way back into Y. This is also a good point where we could use the 4-camera view to see where this is going. I'm going to rotate it positive. Negative 90. And have it be off screen. So it's going to look like it's driving. Towards the screen. So this might be a good view for 2. This one is going to be top, yes. You can see now, here's my Jeep as it, but I want it halfway here. Halfway here, I want this to be, and all I have to do is give it a little bit of juice here to be able to now create the Bezier handles that will allow me to, whoops, rotate. Let's just use that. So you see now it's going to follow. Okay. Like it's making a right turn right towards the screen. Problem, of course, here is my points, right? And my points here, I want it to be ease in, ease out. But this one, I may have to come back and choose this one. Let's do this. Let me take that away now. So I right click.
Okay, but how did you open that like preview thing on the left that shows it like top down almost?
Yes. Which question?
Yeah, how did you get that again? Just so you remember.
In your viewer here, you have, uh, ways of looking at one view, two view, or four views. So when I was showing you how to use like the 3D vectoring before, I switched to the four view. That gives me a top view, it gives me a front, it gives me a side, as opposed to the single one, which is your active camera view. It's just in the far right side of your viewer. I just switched to two. Now again, if you want a different view here, I can choose any view I want here, right? Bottom, top, custom, default. Okay, but I want the the top view here because I want to see that G. See how it's moving? You can see it from in Z space moving. Okay, and that now will allow me to get proper angle. Then I can go back to my one view to see now the action of this animating logo. See?
All right.
In fact, that makes me just want to come back here now and let's see where it be. All kinds of stuff here. Let's see. Hard echoing hit. Let's go ahead and bring that in. Just an audio sound effect of this hard echoing hit. Boom, right here. Let's see. Okay. Let's go to our master comp now. Now the Jeep logo is replacing the opening logo, so I really don't need that anymore. There's our new Jeep logo. Actually, expand this more, make it a little bit more content, which is composition setting. Just a little more content there. Even here, when it makes the big bang, look at the audio wave. It's right about there. It's a little bit late, actually. See? A little bit late. So even here, with these wiggles here, see, wiggle position, scale, let's go with wiggle scale. I can create with that big bang effect there. 0 and 0, the illusion of camera shake. Just by keying 0, my audio right about here. Okay, let's go ahead and find the effect for the wiggle and add the key there for 0, 0. And up, speed. So watch this. Okay. Just give some illusion of some camera shake. You know, that's a little extreme. Let's get that number. We will mount, let's say 50% and 12 speed. I can even say Google width separately, no. And now I'm just gonna try to get some camera shake. When you do that, don't forget to, and now you've added that shake, add a little blur. So when it shakes, okay, it's gonna give you some blur to it. Okay. Which reminds me that I add blur to the actual logo layer. No, I didn't. See, there's always stuff you can add more dynamic. All right, so again, now we've got an opening logo. I've got, you know, a nice little, you know, graphic here to kind of talk about, you know, some more information. Now I need some content in the middle. Let's go to our content section here. Okay. And what I'm going to do with this content section here is kind of break down, you know, what I want to use and what I don't want to use into little bits and snippets. Because there's more than enough content. I'm dealing with a 30-second ad. I'm dealing with only maybe about 18 seconds of video here, but yet the video is 2-3 minutes. In fact, it makes me even think about some cooler ways to kind of do this. Now, we'll come back to that. This is kind of in a way what we're getting at here. Maybe I should put my Jeep logo on top. There's so many cool ways we can play with video and two-dimensional layers or three-dimensional layers. One way to look at this, of course, is this Jeep logo that I've got here at the end here is actually a cutout. It has an alpha channel. So we do have some cool blending modes here, not just, you know, the obvious like overlay or multiply like we would see in Photoshop. But we also have these like stencil alpha, where you can see here that the alpha channel for the Jeep logo is what is see-through or not see-through. See that? Or I can play around with the blending mode of silhouette alpha, which means now the logo is see-through. See that? But maybe I'll show you that in a sec. So let's see here. I want that just to do a quick jump cut. See kind of just really quickly what I've got going on here. Okay, that's almost telling me right there when the music changes. I almost want another view, which would be right at here. Which is exactly 8 seconds. See, most music is actually a 4/4 beat, which is really neat. So at 8 seconds here, content. Which is no longer starting at 8. Let's see, maybe ahead. I can always adjust this on the fly. There we go. That's 4. Just change the scenery. There. That's the master comp now. just a few frames off. Maybe just a few frames off. Just a second or two off. Am I going the right way or the wrong way here? The wrong way. A little bit more. So now I'm just in this issue now of me kind of figuring out what kind of content I want in the center here, right? I'm just going to kind of fake this with a quick little video edit. Go ahead and do another split layer here. Just try to get another easier looking shot here. You can almost get to the idea of your timing here even. So it's like 8, 9, 10.5 seconds change, half, 2, 3, something like right here should change. Now let it go over 14, maybe here change. You'll know it when you look at your audio file and you look at the WAV file and you're like, oh, that needs to be moved over a little bit more. You know, is it syncing? But let the audio control. I kind of like the way that kind of does that right there. Let's see. Jeep coming at the end is a little early. So let's go ahead and just make that the layer time stretch. Let's make it be 7 seconds instead of 8. So I can move that over here. Maybe I'll do a quick transition here on my video, where I'll just do my opacity shift, fade. So that now my main logo can come up. Go ahead and save that. All right. All right, so the last thing I want to do here, or maybe play around with a little bit more, is go ahead. Actually, I'm looking at the time here. Hold on a second. Let's just do this really quickly. Let's go to Adobe Illustrator, because I want to show you again, because part of the animated logo is you can animate the same logo, but animate it 2 different ways, 2 dynamic ways. So I've already used just an animated logo version here, which, by the way, if it comes to that, right, I can come here to the Jeep logo right here, even with the sound effect, boom, watch this. And even right here, add that to the Adobe Media Coder queue. So you can be working on your logos for the module number 4, 2 animated logos, while you're working on the broadcast comp. See, and I can come in here, send this logo off into the folder, or into my media encoder here and render it off to turn it in. So you can do this. You can work on. So all I need to do is just verify that it is going to be H.264. If you've got that, some people are complaining they don't have H.264. There is an MOV, right? Just don't choose MPEG-4 entirely because you're going to see that it's a 3GP. That you look at the size, it's horrible, horrible low quality. So I have had students do that before, and I'm like, no, it's not MPEG-4, it's H.264 MPEG-4. But you do have, of course, a QuickTime here, where you can even choose your different, compression types or aspect ratios, preferably H.264. And then I can come here and say, hey, match source, or I could go high quality 1080p. Doesn't really matter there. Come here, find my folder, right? And I could do my last name, logo 01, right? And just fire that off and go. And now I'm doing the next module, or part one of that module, just right there. Leave that up there. In the meantime, let's go ahead to Adobe Illustrator, right? Create new, fill in video, 1920 1080. Okay, and this gets me now to what the 1920 1080 looks like inside of Adobe Illustrator, which will allow me to place the logo. Right? And again, remember, just like I said with text, Action Title Safe is there for a reason, meaning I don't need a giant logo. Okay, I don't need it to be the whole size of the screen. It's fine in the middle like this. Now, what I'm going to do with this is image trace it, and I'm just going to use a black and white logo because I don't need color. Okay, this looks pretty clean. If I need to, I can go and refine it and say, hey, yes, you know what? Ignore the white to get rid of the white border here. I'm going to leave it right there because I only want to expand and ungroup it because I don't want these. I only want the actual font, just like that. Middle. Now at this point, whatever color I want this to be is almost easier to do it here. So if I go with like a red. Now you'll notice when I chose a color red, it didn't give it to me. That's because I image traced it as a black and white logo. So what we have to do is go to Edit, Color, convert to RGB, and now it'll let me add a color to it. See? Just go ahead and just hit Control S to save. Broadcast composition, assets. Let's call this logo as an AI file. Hit save, but in the pop-up here, you see it includes compression and PDF compatible. Well, After Effects doesn't want that. Okay, so you typically want to take that away or save as an older version. Maya works the same way. Maya will only let you bring in vectors that are saved at an older version. Okay, so I could probably just remove compression like that, and it will work for me pretty well. Okay, let's go now to the ending logo, which again, I don't really need to bring them in here, but because let's go ahead and import file. Now, assets, where's my Illustrator? There it is. Now, if this footage composition, I could bring in these things here, and if I, especially I wanted to put these on different layers, but right now I only need to really import it as footage, just because, oh, that was the wrong one. Gee, I'm just going to bring it in as footage now because it already is a vector AI file. There's an error. There's an error. Hold on. Try that. Huh. What is this error it's giving me? That's really weird. All right, well let's try this again since it didn't like that. Do save as. Let's just go with everything on. That was weird that it did that to me. Oh, okay, so apparently maybe it corrected its issue. But you see, that's a logo file. That's an AI file, meaning that is vector. Okay? But if I want to do something like with shiny Chrome and all that stuff, I have to convert that by doing a create shapes from vector file. That will now give me it hides the original AI file and gives me the shape version here, which will allow me to, again, affect the material, the contents, and remember, switching to Cinema 4D before it gives me the geometry options of basically extruding it back into Z. See, I'm extruding it back into Z space. And let's give it, instead of a round or odd number like that, let's just give it something that's even, like 300. So it's got a depth of 300, see? Now be aware of that. This is back again to the 2D so I can see the top down, because look what it does. It extrudes it back off the axis, back off of the anchor point. So if I extruded it 300 back, I'm going to want to move the anchor point of Z 1/5 or half. See, because I want that anchor point in the middle if I'm going to rotate or do something back like that. Let's just send it back to where it was originally. This could also be, now, before I even work on beauty or making reflections or really straining my computer, I might want to think about what the movement of this might be at this point. So, how is it going to appear? Is it going to animate in onto the screen? Most logos animate on, animate off, typically. So maybe what I'll do here is just kind of like what I've done in the past, is maybe come up here and say, well, I know I need this to be on the screen right here. Maybe I'll go with at 2 seconds here, key the position, so that I can go back in time here and send this thing up in the the y-axis. So let's just go ahead and have that so I can have it fly in from the top. This could also be me setting the Y rotation. So maybe I have this stop here at 3 with, we'll go with 4 full rotations. Let's go ahead and select those keys. So all those keys there to get the ease, right-click keyframe assist, ease. So it can ease in, ease out, so the speed and the timing. So you see it's going to come down, stop where it wants to do, and do basically 1.5 more full rotations until it stops. Okay. We'll have it sit there, have somebody read that logo for a second or two, key that position, and then I'll have it fly at the camera by having it move in Z to, let's see here, this should be, is it at 150 is positive? Nope, it's going to be a negative number in Z. Let's just say negative 1,000. Still need more than that. Let's say negative 2,000. Okay. More. I want this to fly right through the camera. So instead of flying the camera through the logo, I'm flying the logo through past the camera. And I'm actually going to go down a little bit here. So let's see what that does. There, see, so I'm going to have it fast. Now that's going past the camera. If I wanted to, I could target that, of course, so that it looks like it's going through like the E or something like that. But just be careful. I don't want it to run into all those pixels. And make sure it's clear, fast, and not visible anymore, right about there. All right. So I've got the movement of my 3D vector shaped logo here. Now let's work on some of the material or the, oh wait, let me add a little bit of bevel. I'll put a little bevel on this just to add some of the 3D bevel of 5 on there, okay. Now I need to work on the material options for this. So right now, cast shadows, by default, cast shadows are off. If I wanted to cast shadows, like onto a background or something, I can activate that. I have it accepting shadows, accepting lights, appears and reflections. I have things that are low, like specular shininess. I typically like that to be higher. And reflectivity intensity is currently at 0. I'd like that to be much higher. Now, it's not going to, none of that's going to show up at this point because I have nothing here. Okay? And again, now that I've boosted the reflectivity intensity, it goes black because the world is currently black. There is no reflection in this to show up. So it's reflecting the fact that it's just a black space. Now, this is where I typically like to add some lights. Usually a 3-point light. I'll go with a light blue. I like to play around with warm and cold. So I'll go okay for spotlight 1. Let's go ahead and put that in its position. This, of course, when you create a spotlight, you get targeting. Okay, so you see now that's going to light up the right-hand side. Maybe just double click, go with a little more intensity. Because I'm trying to counteract the fact that it's reflecting all this black around it. Okay, let's go ahead and add another light. This one, I typically like to go warm. I like playing around with warm and cold lights just because that's really what the world is all about, right? You know, things are either warm or they're cool. Let's go ahead and have this light all the way to the left of my logo. Whoops. So, and this is actually a very good time here to even zoom out so I can even move this light. I'll go up with my light. So it's aiming down towards the logo. See how that looks now. At least now I've got that warm light kind of going there. Maybe I'll double click and just boost the intensity there a little bit. So, put down my feather. Now it's starting to show up light. And this also might be a good case to get rid of the black that's inside of here by putting a third light, 3-point light system. And this one, just to keep it simple, I'll just do a point. And I'll pick a color. Maybe I'll pick a reddish color or something like this, just to help. With the colorization, or I could go purple, I could blue, just like to keep, you know, turn that down in value. Really don't need to have these be too intensive. And this one is going to be behind the 3D text. And I'll have it go up in the sky, because my logo is going to fly under my camera, just like that. So 3D, 3-point light system. And now you can see that this thing is really starting to, pick up all that reflectivity. See that? However, now I need to think about what is the world reflecting. Because right now, it's black, and you can see that is not acceptable. When it's back there, sure, or when it's coming down out of the sky, or it's spinning, right? It's got that cool, shiny 3D kind of effect, but I want it to actually now look like it's picking up the world around it instead of this black nothingness, okay? And to do that, I can think about, well, what is it reflecting? What is actually it reflecting? So this is where I typically what most reflections pick up what's called, on the clouds, right? So I'm just going to find some stock images of some clouds here, some sky. It can be pretty dynamic here, right? Maybe I will use that just because it's got some yellow, it's got some color to it all. Let's go save that image as in my assets. I'll call my sky reflector. Okay. Now, how do we bring those in? Well, we need to import them in. So here's my sky reflector. Import that in. And the cool thing about using 3D layering is it really doesn't matter if the order of the layers, because the layers are now being activated in 3D space, so there is no top, bottom, or otherwise. Okay, so now I've got this sky I just brought in. I'm going to put one sky in the back. Okay, let's go ahead and size it up. Use some scale. And so this guy is facing the camera behind the logo. Suddenly you see, look how bright everything got. Now, I may play around with the materials here, like accept lights and turn it off. That means that it won't be lit by that. I can also come here and say that it appears in reflections is on. I can also go off, so it doesn't appear reflections, or I can go by clicking on it only. Meaning it's not showing up in the scene, but it's showing up in the reflections only. But this is where I described before. One of the things we want to do here, though, is almost create a 360 degrees. Think of an IMAX, or think of a video game where you build a sky dome, right, or a sky sphere. And that's what allows ray tracings to bounce from all directions, so we get rid of this black nothingness. So to do that, I have to go into the geometry options for this flat planar background sky. And I like to add curvature. You see what it's doing now. You see it's curving. It doesn't show up. It's going from being flat now to being curved, almost like the backdrop of an IMAX theater or something. 100% curve. I may want to add segments to this, though, so it isn't blocky. It's kind of like adding polygons to a plane, so it gets more rounder, smoother, kind of a rounder, smoother version of that. It's like a bend deformer. And now that I've done that, I can actually move this now back into closer to my logo, because it is now going to create this round kind of reflective backdrop that goes around like this around the logo. Problem, of course, is that's reflecting to the back of the logo. We need another one of these. So I'll just hit Control-D to duplicate it. But now I need another one that is in front of our logo. So I'm just going to take it, duplicate it, rotate it 180, so that it is now facing it. Now suddenly you see just how bright our graphic has got, because now it's not reflecting black behind the camera. It's reflecting that cloud, that flat planar cloud that I've made it into a curved projection. And I'm going to move that now a little bit in front of, which means if you look at this on a top-down basis, the only place that black nothingness will exist will be in this gap and in that gap right there. I've actually known people to do whole domes out of this. So they basically put, a flat cloud on the top layer that's facing down. How would we do that? Well, we can do that here by simply taking another one of these, duplicating it. Okay, let's make it non-curved and no segments. Okay, so now it's just flat, but instead of rotating it, so now it's just flat. Let me move this back so we can see. This might be a situation where I need to look at it in a top-down view. Okay, let's do that. Let's move it back. See, so it's directly on top of our logo, but we need to rotate it in the proper direction, which would be 90. See, so now it's flat. But now we need to move it up in the y-axis so that it is acting as a ceiling to reflect onto our logo. So now it's up in the air. And that's going to make a difference when we're flying towards the camera now. And it goes underneath us. This top part is reflecting up. No, it's not. Look, see? We need to make sure that it is covering see how it's now covering our logo at the end there. So the angle of the camera is bouncing off the top of our logo and picking up the fact that way up is the ceiling of that same image facing down. So let's go back to our one view to see what our logo looks like here. To get that three-dimensional effect. Okay? I can even do some neat little post effects or something. So and that's pretty much in a nutshell our ending logo. And the cool thing about doing it, now remember, I'm in quarter quality view. Let's go to full a second to get the maximum quality here. Now it almost says that my Jeep here needs to be a little quicker, so maybe I'll layer time stretch it again so that it is now even quicker. Say 6 seconds. There, so it's off screen. But the cool part about doing, the 3D layer and all that here on its own composition is that now by the time I'm here, I can control that. So maybe if I say to myself, yeah, you know what, it is a little too dark. Well, I can now affect it as a nested composition. Come in here to like say brightness, contrast, or levels, or exposure, or something like that. And say, yeah, you know what, I want it to be a little bit brighter here. I want it to have, more color variations. That's now going to animate down. Catch up here. Right, and you see now it's going to animate down, spinning, stop, and do its thing. This almost makes me want to have a background element added in here. Let's see. Just find an image, maybe, or I can find video. I can do whatever I wanted, here, right? I'm just going to go with an image rather than, and I'm just looking for flat desert element here. Something small that I could have just a bit of back. And I'm just putting that in there so that I can get something in the back besides all that black. Okay. Make sure it fits. Okay. And now my Jeep's gonna go across there. Get that to fade out. The second the Jeep's gone. Up there. Right as it starts to move, I'll just take opacity. So I'm almost finding that that's kind of leaving the screen a little too quickly. So I can add time, stretch time. Let's go with 8, maybe a half a second here. That's going to fade, and then have about a half a second at the end without anything. Okay. And you can see that reflection now popping up and showing up. If it's not enough reflection, well, that's going back to the logo. If it's there's the logo, finding that shape layer, right? Going into and boosting the intensity of the reflections even more. You can even say, I want to blur the reflection by decreasing or adding a little roll off to that to kind of affect that. Changing the specular shininess, changing the specular intensity so I get more hot spots and shine on that to even look more like it. We can even look at the contents here of what this is, because what it is, it took those 4 vectors and converted them into the 4 groups. Each of these groups you see has a path, has a fill. So if I want to, I can even key the color here, right? And change the color. So now it's a blue Jeep, a blue jay instead of a red jay. If you don't really like that color, if you go with just a neutral color, it actually will pick up more of the cloud color and the reflection. See that? And that's kind of cool there because you can now see that the red is reflected in that. So we can even do like a red, a multicolor, maybe a white. Maybe I'll leave the E as red, come into 3. Here, maybe that one will be a blue. Okay, and how that changes the color. Maybe I'll make the P here also be a neutral gray white. Yeah, and it affects a lot of how the color. We can even come into these, see here, into these paths, okay, or merging of those paths, or transform. So I can even animate each of these, coming together. So maybe what I'll do here, watch this. Let's go and key the position here. So put that at 20 frames there. That by the time I'm at 10, I can even have that P kind of separate a little bit away from the main logo. Let me show you how to do this with a couple others. That's number 4. 2, transform, position. Let's move over a little bit to the right, see? Kind of widen it out or change the kerning. Now making the J move over to the left a little bit. Wide, so I could keyframe the individual shapes as well as control the entire shape transform. So now those are just going to kind of widen out a little bit as it goes past the camera, just to play around with that. So again, you don't need to create a custom camera. See, now you can see how cool that looks now, especially the difference of creating the chrome effect by just having more white text. I actually do one in geometry for bevel depth. That really changes the specular element of how the light hits and plays with things. And you can see you can do angular, convex, concave. These basically give you rounder bevels or concave bevels, where look, it's got the opposite of a rounder edge. It's got more of a carved out edge. See that bevel now playing into it, to where you can see the edges on the specular side of it all. See that? And that means now you can see where I can almost, you know what, these almost need to be separated a little bit more. They're a little too snug to each other because the bevel's going outward as well. So that would be one of those issues of, okay, yeah, that means now back here when I started, they almost need to be starting further apart together. Or just don't go with quite a large bevel so that they're not cramping up against each other. Now this also could be an issue though, is because now as I'm doing this, as I get to that 3D layer, it's just gonna go just slow down severely. So this might be a good thing here, this ending logo, to do what's called a pre-render, okay? Just to get it done, and then I don't have to fight with this Cinema 4D anymore because I'm done with it. Okay, so let me save before I do that. And with this ending logo done, I can come here and I can pre-render it. Now this uses the render encoder or render queue built into After Effects. Now what do we need to do? I need to go to best setting, best and full. Okay, go to the output module here. Now it says it's an AVI with no compression. That is preferable, okay? Because I don't want this to be compressed because it's already high quality with all that reflection. Why would I want to go backwards and now do a compressed version? But this AVI compressed, no compression, will be quite large. But that's why we're only dealing with about 7-8 seconds. You see the post-render action would be import and replace usage, which means it's going to render this video as an AVI and replace it in my composition, so I don't need to use the Cinema 4D and I get my performance back. You also see it's going to do an RGB and the alpha channel. So this is how you output something when you make a logo that you might want to drop onto a different background. Maybe you see someone hires you to do a logo, an animation, and you're like, okay, I want to be able to use this again and again, but put it against different backgrounds. You do it as an RGB and alpha, where the alpha will be the cutout, like a PNG does. So it's already cut out from the background. Okay, let's just hit okay. I'm gonna leave ending load, leave the name here, but verify the location, see? Because it's going to opening titles. So let's just make sure it's going to the right folder, right? Ending logo, hit save, and then we hit the render button. Now, this isn't quite slow. It's going pretty fast right now, not that bad. But this is the most heaviest form of rendering inside of After Effects because it's utilizing that ray trace factor. And I don't even know if my Cinema 4D settings are set to maximum or average in the quality of the ray trace. But you can see how cool that looks now. As it spins and it's picking up those different colors of the lighting, it's picking up the reflection of that sky image. You can even see as it's spinning there, you can see the sunset version reflecting. We've got the top version, we've got the bottom reflecting. But again, it does take some time. In fact, I don't know if you just saw here, the E, see that big black that's going through there? That's the space that was left in those reflecting. So it is reflecting that blank space between the two reflecting backgrounds that I put, the one on the back behind it, the one in front of it, and then the one on top. There's still an opening there, and it's visible. It's a scene. By taking the time and doing this now, see how fast it goes because there's no movement at all? And now it's going to fly towards us, which is going to slow down the rendering process. So this will just eliminate me having to fight with the Cinema 4D renderer in the nested comp or the master comp. This is going to replace it. I just think it's really cool when you see reflections play around like that in After Effects of all things. I mean, not in Maya, not in Studio Max, not in Cinema 4D, just After Effects. And why is it turning dark there? Is because I'm going past the light. Or I went past, in fact, I didn't think I passed the light. I think I passed the reflective channel there. So it's only reflective on the backside because I've gone through that plane that I put out there reflecting, which means now it's just reflecting the world of black. So it's kind of interesting that, you know, once you get into the 3D realm and understand 3D space and everything, even inside of After Effects. And once it's done here, shit, I'm surprised it's not speeding up. I could. There we go. Gives us a little toaster sound, which means we can move this and eliminate the render queue. And that means literally this ending logo here, I can actually just X that out of my comp. It's still going to be here if I need it. You see what it's done is it's now brought that video I just rendered here and added it to the master comp as just the ending logo API, which gives me a very fast version of it. See? Just like that. So my playback should be quite fast now. In fact, maybe I'll go to a quarter quality just to make it even better. Now, what is up with my audio? Let this finish up. Oh, my audio is here. What? BPM. Let's try a reload. What is going on? Preview. Cache move time, preview time, cache before playback, play audio, audio is on. That's not from the audio. Let's see here. Why is my audio not working? All right, I wonder if I'm running too low on cache memory. Let's go here, watch this now. Don't forget to do this under edit, purge. Doesn't hurt to do this, especially if you want to get your memory back. All memory and disk cache. Yeah, see, there's 14.4 gigabytes. Let's just remove that. Get that back on our computer here. I don't know why none of the audio is now working. Typical. And get back now. Let's see. Got this. Is that. Let's see, maybe I need to deactivate the ending logo. Yeah, let's go ahead and deactivate it back to class 3D to get that back. You see what it looks like when you turn that off? Okay. See, now you can almost see where I've got the top and the back and the front. I don't need that. I'm just wondering if that is what's preventing me getting my audio here. So if you get snafus and issues like this, guys, remember, one of the best things you can do about this, where it's not playing, it's not, it's locked up on you or something like that, shut it down. Just close it on down. Because you got to remember, I've also now still have Illustrator open. Right? Illustrator's a beast. I still have Photoshop open. Shut it down. Get all that RAM back. I still have my media encoder open. Media encoder really doesn't. All right, let's get rid of that. Let's reopen my composition 2. Start with a blank slate, right? Fresh. Right? There you have it. One thing we forgot to do, of course, is now we need to go in and put the information in, right? We got all the content here. So adventure in your heart, freedom on your mind, just good old fashioned, text elements here. Maybe that goes into the content section, right? Maybe here I want to go with my text tool, go with white. Let's find a decent, easy to read font. Impact, turn on my action title safe elements here. And what did it say now? Adventure in your heart, freedom in your mind. Well, that's kinetic type right there, right? Venture in your heart. Come up with a nice way of presenting that. That big, like I said. Maybe think about the layout of things and the basic rules of light over dark, dark over light. So maybe I'm going to put this over here. This first. Okay. So I'm going to have it end right there. Okay, so venture in your heart. Now, how am I going to have that appear? Is it just going to appear? Is it going to type out? Do I want to use one of these cool effects here? So again, effect, text, I'm sorry, presets, text, animate in, animate out, blurs, mechanicals, organics, you know. Let's do bullet train. And now we have to go into the text and find the keys that it's set for bullet train. See the two keys under the range selector. Now, is that going to animate in? Maybe I want that to occur a little quicker. And then at the end of the clip, I can have it just hold that key, select that key, copy and paste it. Select this key, copy, paste it, and now I've repeated the venture in your heart. Right? Now let's keep this simple and stupid. Right? Clean. Just going to take this one, duplicate it, Control D. And this is the next phrase, right? Which is freedom on your mind. Okay. Come here. Play around again. Paragraph settings, over there. Now again, light on dark, dark on light. This over here. Offset my timing of my keyframes so that it actually ends at the end. That venture in your heart, freedom on your mind. I just want to have that play around. Have some fun with this text, right? Just like kinetic typing this way. $181, there we go. $181. Okay, go ahead and duplicate that one. Slide it on over. Right? Open up your endpoints and endpoints. Actually going to have it be a little shorter here. So I can have two phrases at the same time. And what else can we put here? Let's see. Lead the way everywhere, because your Freedom Pack, whatever it's called, that's the slogan here. Lead the way everywhere, because our 5-year Freedom Pack has got you covered. Right? Whatever it happens to be, you're going to put in there. Use the copy of an ad. If you want to make a good ad, go to the website for the ad. Go to Nike. What's their campaign talking about? You know? So lead the way everywhere. Let's do that. Lead the way everywhere. Back to I'm just gonna keep going here. Lead the way everywhere, that's the second line, because our 5-year freedom pack oops, that didn't work. Check your spelling. Remember, we have spell check it here. That's got you covered. Okay, now what I did there, which is kind of cool, let me go ahead and just play with this. Okay, it doesn't have to be super large. We can play around with that. And we see now. Now what's really neat here, which we could do, is I could track this actually on there. Now I don't want to talk and get so much into like camera tracking or motion tracking or something like that, but because it's really, really neat to do. If you go to my YouTube channel, I have videos on how to do that. So I can actually track this so it matches the movement of this Jeep. But what I'm going to do here is, it's already done, duplicate it a couple times so that I can do that. Okay, lead the way everywhere. And here's my end marker here. Do that. Oh, see, I need to get to there. Just to offset those three. So lead the way everywhere. And I can say, just neat. Neat. There. Oops. I deleted the wrong part. And you see how I did that? So just got you covered. And then it's just an issue of, what else do I want to do here? Is there information, more information to put in there? Wrangler, starting at, EMI, whatever, this information, awards, if you don't know what to put in there, like I say, go look at the ad. Maybe find one that's a little more contemporary, like the toughest vehicle in the world, any world. Or, let's see here, what I'm looking for. Hours paid roads for breakfast, whatever. I'm just looking for here. Let's just say here, 215 Wrangler Sport, whatever. Friend and family pricing for everyone. Whatever you want to put, the information. I've got a whole lot of space here that I put ads. See? A whole lot of space here to put ads. Let's do one that is interesting here. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new column here, okay? Because what do we got? We got at least a few frames here of this. We'll keep it stupid. I'll go grab this one, duplicate it again. So I can now have some information here. And what was I going to put in there? 20, we'll just do something simple here. I know it's not going to be accurate, but oops. All caps, doing it the whole time. Back to 181. I don't think it's that large. Less time. But again, I can dupe and overlap it. Let's try and see here. Value, like 269 a month. I doubt that. That's, we'll say 550 a month is more. Right? That's a little bit more truthful right there with what the cost of these things are compared to 2,000, whatever that was. MO. It's interesting. I just sped up a month instead. All right, let's see what this looks now with our added. Now, I'm already starting to see something I need in that content for this text, right? What's it need? It needs some oomph, it needs some pop, it needs to stand up a little bit. Let's go to perspective and add drop shadow. In fact, I'm gonna have some fun with this drop shadow, watch this. Okay, where I'm going to start with a distance of 0. Wherever that first reveals itself, like there, watch this distance. And then right before it dissipates, watch how cool this is. I'm going to key it in distance. So it looks like it's actually flying in shadow. I could also do that. Open up my drop shadow here. I can also do that in terms of softness. So as it goes away, it's going to give me that illusion of blur. See? Now, what's cool about that? Right? Now I can come to this drop shadow information here, copy, Command or Control C, grab my next guy here, Control Command V to paste it, and now I can near the end there. Move these keys off to there. So now that's going to have that, see that cool animated drop shadow flying away? Maybe instead of going that direction, I'll go that direction with it. I'm just adding a little bit more dynamic element to this. Let's go with this one. Again, I can paste it right to it. then go verify the keyframes. Okay. That's going away. Paste. Paste. Oops, not that one. This one. Paste onto there. This one here. Paste onto there. And paste onto there. Okay. It just adds a pretty cool little effect. More stuff going on. All right, so let's assume I'm done. Okay, now I could go in, like I said, in most cases, I could record a voiceover. I could go into Adobe Audition, launch Adobe Audition, and read off some of these things, right? You know, venture in your heart, you know, freedom on your mind, lead the way everywhere, because if I had that, and just read the voiceover and then add that over top of all this, just to boost and add to it. And that's pretty easy to do in Adobe Audition with a basic microphone. Just make sure you turn your speakers on, because you don't want to get feedback from your speakers. Now, one last thing I'm going to do though is I want this all to kind of tie together a little bit even more. But in order to do that, because this is made up of all these little comps here, right? The master comp. I might want to come here. Again, it's 30 seconds exactly in a new composition here. And I'll call this, you know, output composition or something like that. Again, make it 30 seconds, which is nice. 1920, 1080, everything looks good. And let's go ahead and bring the master comp now into this. So now it is nested into one master, you know, one final little comp here. And this is where I can play around with, you know, since we're kind of going for action, Jeeps, all that stuff. Let's see what we have here in some of these presets. So let's come here and go glitch. Okay, digital glitch. Let's see what now remember, wherever we have this marker is where we can apply, but you see I'm doing this to the nested, see that? And that's kind of cool. So I'll do here. And you see now I can play around with this glitch. You see here, horizontal field, monoscopic frame, point of interest, there, see? So I can just come here. And put some little keys on here, just to kind of add this action of it all. Oops. So I just added just some random keyframes for VR digital glitch. You see them right there. Just give me a little bit of. Oops. That's my first one. Set to 0. Take that, copy and paste it, just to get another little glitch there. Paste it. Paste it. Paste it. Paste it. Just kind of change it up. Add a little more effect. quite so much. Maybe here, right at the end of this, just repeat and add that hard echo hit. Just kind of go bam at the very end. Put that waveform first, because it's really long, echoey waveform. See? So maybe what I'll do here is just do that and fade off. Level. I just want that ending there too. That's kind of like a bang at the very end. Let's come up with some other neat little final polishing elements that we can do with this. Now, I love to even play around with some of these filtering effects here, like color corrections, because especially if you're grabbing footage from different places, you know, like video from different sources, different locations, different, you know, types of cameras. But there's this great color correction called Lumetri, which you're going to find in Premiere Pro. You're going to find, and Lumetri gives us, you know, basic correction to the whole thing. See. So we can change to different, you know, temperatures, make it warmer. See, even that already, just by making it warmer like that, already looks better, right? Because it warmed up the whole comp. Tinted, you know, you can see where you could do that. But exposure, you've got, you know, creative elements here. So you've got these looks, these color grading and color correction, based on different types of cameras, different types of film. And there's tons of them here. And it's kind of like a photo filter that you would use here. I can go gold and western, watch how this kind of filters everything out. See that? Now imagine if this was actually at full quality here instead of quarter. So you see everything touched into the gold, western, and it got warm that way. Or let's go off with, see, these are black and white from the bars. You've got blue ice or blue moon. Now that's going to blue tint everything, which I kind of like as well. See how the white is now a little warmer. What else can I do there? Because I'm trying to go for action, intense, you know, crazy. Let's have some fun with this. I'm going to go back to my wiggles. And I'll go with wiggle position, rotation. I'll just toss in a wiggle position on this. Okay, but my wiggle position is going to be very slow. You see, it's run too fast. Yeah, it runs too fast. Let's go 0.5. Very slow and very low as far as that. Now that will require me to add just a little bit of scale, just so I'm not off that. And now it's going to have this random kind of float to it, like it's a handheld camera. Now it's also going to slow it down because let's go back to order quality. Let's jump it down to 25%, get more RAM. So what I've done here, just by putting this little bit of wiggle, okay, is it's going to kind of float, you know, and kind of just, you know, give you that, you know, non-steady cam effect. Nervousness about just kind of getting, instead of just being a static kind of version of this, it's kind of going with that kind of rocking back and forth. All right, what else can we do with this? Okay, because I want to just kind of really just bang, 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 bang. Like wherever I have like, I want to draw attention to this. Let's play around with some of these other effects. Things like I've used this before: light rays, light bursts, light sweep. Okay, you see what light sweep does? It gives us this little targeter, okay, that, you know, I can choose where the center of this is. I don't know why that's not showing up. It should be showing up as, am I having another problem here with this? The center here. Should give me a little dot that I can control, but it's not giving me that. Width, wider, or actually make it more intense. Where's my intensity? There it is. There. What I can do here really quickly is just start with the center of this down below here, key it, go through some time, and then have it go up here. So that now this little light sweep, you see, is going to go and say, hey, read this. See that? Read this. It's all it's saying is read this. Come over here at this end here, where it's, you know, where I've got this moment of just pause. Even here, I can come in and do some cool effects, especially on the generate side. Now, a lot of people have been playing around with the lens flare element. It's really cheesy, but it does do some cool effects. Once again, I'm not getting my correct. This is supposed to give me a little dot here that I can physically move around, but you see it's not doing it right now. I think I need to increase it to 100%. Yeah, it's not giving me my locator. But even here, what I like to do with this lens flare sometimes is, let's have it start over here, okay? Let's start with it at 0, brightness, key, move it a little bit up, 100% brightness. Okay, let's go ahead and have it fly across the screen somehow, like maybe all the way over there. And then at the end, deactivate the intensity or brightness. And then even in between a few places, let's find this. So, in between, see, so it's kind of flying across the screen. We'll play around with this brightness. Okay, you have it blend with the original a little bit, so it's not quite as intense. Because right now you see it just looks like it's flying across the screen. In fact, I want it to be never really crossed the screen. But you're going to see the lens flare. You're going to see the lens flare as an effect on the actual page itself without seeing it. Just like that. It's just a neat effect. Okay, so let's see if this actually. All right. I like what we got. You know, I've got some really cool content. I've got an opening logo that's done. I've got an end logo that's done. So remember, if I come to this first logo here, right, with the sound effect, did I already render this? No. So again, I can come here, add a media encoder. Oh wait, maybe I did already do it. Let me go to my filter. Assets, ending logo. Okay, well, do I have my beginning logo? Oh, last name logo, here's one. So maybe because I pre-rendered it, I already have it, but it is, yeah, see, I already have that one here. But the other one, which I pre-rendered, is not the correct format. Okay, so let me quickly just come in here and that's in my assets. That's this ending logo, that's 3D. So let's toss that in there. And again, ready to go. I just got to change the name to it, ending logo. Let's say last name logo 2. The last name logo 01. This is last name logo 02. Okay, that's ready to go. And now I'm ready to go to my final output comp here. Go ahead and export to the encoder. Last name, broadcast composition, module 3, whatever you want to call it. Here we go. Make sure I go here to my folder. I'll call this one broadcast. Maybe I'll probably yeah, there because the last one was called broadcast graphic. I did last week. Save, hit OK, and now I can hit my render queue here in the media encoder, and it's going to render not only the logo as an H.264, but it's going to render now my broadcast. So you can send all your things connecting to Dynamics Link Server. So it's still trying. Take a moment. I don't know why. There it goes. Okay, so it's finally working. Excellent.